Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big. Guest today is Sharan Bal. Sharan, please tell us where you are in the world and what you do for a living.
Thank you for having me. I am based in the Netherlands, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sha Spirits, a non-alcoholic spirits based out of the Netherlands.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about, do you have any background in this kind of space in beverage service or anything like that? Or kind of walk us up to what kind of eventually led you to the decision to start this non-alcoholic spirit brand?
Yes, I think I'll have to take you back a whole while. I never really developed a taste for alcohol, Matt. I just never really enjoyed it, never really got into it. I think I take after my mom, who also does not drink. But, growing up, I never really developed a taste. And then ironically, I landed a job in Diageo, which is one of the biggest spirits players in the world. And while working there, I realized that I couldn't find a product fit for my preferences. And funnily enough, I was their innovation manager for Europe. So I was taking insights and developing all kind of new products for different markets. But I really didn't have a product that was good enough for me because I was quite social and I was quite out there and going to, nice bars and restaurants and clubs, but didn't have that drink. And so while I did fall in love with hospitality and how drinks create an experience, I really wanted a drink that would do that for me, and I couldn't find it. So fast forward, after that, actually, I made a little step at Nolet Distillery to learn all about production and, how it really works, just rather than knowing marketing a brand, but really, production side, supply chain and all that. And then I took the plunge and I thought, okay, I'm going to create something that first and foremost I like and like-minded people would like too.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it really seems like your brand and product doesn't really seem like it's in this category. But like I know in the United States, for example, like this push for like non-alcoholic like alternatives to alcohol has been like huge. Even things like kombucha. I mean, they even market themselves as like an alcohol alternative. Just things like that. All these big brands doing like non-alcoholic beers. Now, your product doesn't really seem like it fits the bill of just like it should taste exactly like beer. It just doesn't have alcohol. I mean, it seems like it kind of has its own kind of vibe and taste and experience that goes along with it. It's not just supposed to be like an alcoholic drink without the alcohol, basically. So, tell me a little bit more about the types of products that you sell. And the kind of experience that you're trying to create with this and the problem that you were trying to solve here with creating this brand and product.
You're completely right. When I started out as an innovation manager, I had a lot of insights, and I knew that at that time, almost 40% of the people that were of legal drinking age did not consume alcohol, and a little bit higher than that wanted to reduce their alcohol intake. And even now, when we have non-alcoholic offerings, consumers and non-alcoholic lovers are still looking for better, sophisticated flavor and experiences. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, and also me being an abstainer, I wasn't necessarily looking to mimic any traditional alcoholic spirits category. So Sha actually is a departure from the traditional spirits category. So it's not a non-alcoholic rum, whiskey, or non-alcoholic gin or anything like that, because I believe people first and foremost are looking for a aromatic and delicious drink, and then for the right experience. So we kind of stepped away from that and just really focused on making a delicious blend, if you like, a spice blend. And I think had I been a drinker, I would have probably been a dark spirit consumer, just because it's the notes and the characteristics, etc. So I kind of went from that, and then I'd taken a sabbatical after I left Nolet Distillery and went traveling and ended up in India, where I'm from. I've got Indian roots, and just kind of didn't even actually look for inspiration. It was there for the taking. And my grandfather had a mango orchard, like a grove, and they had all sorts of spices there back in the day. So I would ask around and, go to the spice market. And people think, India is big on street food, but it's also huge on street drinks. And so, figure out, okay, what are they trying to use? What would that taste like? And essentially what we created was a spice blend. And the interesting thing about, using those spices is they're not just aromatic and or, very flavorful. But beyond that, they're actually, steeped in a very ancient old principle of Ayurveda, which means they have a complementary benefit. So Sha is, next to being a unique and flavor forward non-alcoholic spirit, it's also sort of that hybrid, with complementary functional benefits. And our blend is actually quite an uplifting blend. It's elevating. And that's been our mission right from the start with Sha Spirits is we want to elevate the way people drink and really offer them drinking experiences that are inclusive for when you're being mindful.
That's amazing. And let me just ask you a little bit about some of your revenue channels. So what is your primary way of driving revenue with this brand so far? Are you selling to more like food and beverage service? Are you big in online sales? Give me kind of a breakdown of where the revenue is coming from with this brand so far.
So we actually had an interesting start. We're a very young startup, and we had when we were ready to launch, actually COVID came about. So we really had to sort of pause and pivot our strategy and think, okay, we can't launch traditionally, which would be the hospitality sector. So in hotels, bars, and restaurants, etc., which is where you drive trial. And we really pivoted to the retail because we saw that in the retail, there was a lot of interest. I mean, hospitality was shut during the lockdown. So we thought, okay, well, why don't we look at retailers, and if they have appetite for non-alc and a product like Sha that is quite uniquely placed. And they did. So we pitched, and we're currently available with Holland's largest liquor store retailer called Hall. We're with them focused on the key cities in the Netherlands. So that's The Hague, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and Utrecht. But we are available nationwide through their online channels as well. And next to that, we have a smaller independent, but also very specific non-alcohol retailers that sell us. So yeah, definitely I would say 80% retail. And we've just recently opened up sort of our focus on hospitality, where we're now focusing on hotels, bars, and restaurants and activating with those, because we truly believe that trial is a really good way to get people to buy the drink. We've seen that, and it's one of our biggest growth drivers in the retail is sampling, to get liquid on lips, to get people to try the product is a way for them to say, oh, okay, I didn't expect this and I really like it. And then you can tell your story, share what it is. Because, there's a little bit of a, not negative, but people are a little bit not sure about wanting to try non-alc because a lot of what's out there has been mimic. And so in a lot of people's minds that it just doesn't cut it. And so they're quite like, okay, no, I don't want to try. There's a little bit of a stigma there. And so when we tell them that actually, we're not trying to mimic a traditional category, they're more open to it. And then they're kind of just open to experiencing the flavors and the aromas and the complementary benefits.
Right. That makes sense. I'm just curious because you mentioned kind of like online channels in the Netherlands. Is there like sanctioned places to sell like spirits through like online channels in Netherlands?
So with non-alc, it's been very interesting. Non-alc being non-alc, you can actually sell it anywhere.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
However, typically in the Netherlands, we have for spirits, we have liquor stores. We cannot sell spirits of higher ABV in the supermarkets. Gotcha. And even though Sha is non-alcoholic, we didn't launch in the supermarkets because of the price point. We're priced on par with some of our alcoholic counterparts. So, we didn't go down that route. So we are available in specific liquor stores. And then we have some concept stores that sell sort of a large variety of experiential products or local products. And that's where we go in as well.
Awesome. So have you tried to, drive like direct to consumer online sales more, or have you just really been focused on retail? And, if not, like what's kind of keeping you from, selling more like online and outside of the Netherlands?
We are working on it. Like I said, we're quite a young company. And for us, the first kind of period of launch was really about understanding how we position and really validating our product with the consumers, doing a lot of sampling, understanding where we need to be and how we need to be there. But now we are definitely looking to launch our own D2C platform. So we are working on that. And last year I spent some time, speaking to international markets, and some of the markets had reached out to us, and some of them we've gone to say, hey, listen, listen, this is what we've done in the Netherlands. We are getting some great feedback. And, would you be interested to try the liquid and, receive some great feedback? So we are looking to really kind of make the crossover and start Fansha internationally. So watch this space, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's a really healthy perspective too. I think a lot of folks kind of jump into like the e-commerce space maybe, or, trying to get into like international markets, shipping globally, like right away. And it's hard if you don't have the correct customer feedback to be able to tailor it to. And, as you approach these international markets, obviously, as you've had this experience sampling throughout the Netherlands, obviously you're going to kind of want to do the same thing there and, keep tabs of your feedback, whether it's in the United States or wherever you're looking to, ship internationally. So I think it's a really patient and healthy mindset I think you have with it. So that's great. So I'm curious, when did you start the brand, by the way? I meant to ask you that at the start, but
So we took 2 years to develop, and we launched in retail, I think dry January 2022. Yeah, we pipe filled in 2021. November, December, and we went live in 2022.
Gotcha. Well, that's got to be an awesome time, the dry January.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite bizarre because the world had been in lockdown for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And so normally dry January is really activated in the hospitality, so bars and restaurants. So not having that, it was a little bit quiet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it was great because retailers were really, really starting to, step up and really focus on it. And that we got some really great feedback, and customers are around that time, they really go out and look for it as well. So, while you're sampling, they understand why you're there. But I think one of the things that more and more has become evident is that non-alc is not just for dry January or sober October or whatever month,
Right.
is dedicated to it. It's become, dry January is a really good way to start if you're still, consuming alcohol and you want to have a little bit of a break or a reset or reduce. But what we've seen is that consumers that come into dry January actually elongate their period of not drinking or reducing their drinks in general. So it's a good start, but for us all year round, we're focused on getting non-alc, in retail, but also on those menus in the hospitality sector.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because, as I'm sure you know, being in this space, kind of during COVID and even a little bit post, I mean, the overconsumption of alcohol was just rampant. I mean, in the United States, I think was one of the seemingly the most affected, by that, but certainly it was worldwide. I mean, so much chaos for so long. I think people some of it I think is just maybe like boredom, but a lot of it was like probably stemmed from like depression. And now that we're like coming back out of that and kind of getting back to real life, businesses are starting to prop up more again. I think people are looking for alternatives. So I think this is a really, opportunistic time for a brand like this, and it's different than most of the things I've seen. So I definitely applaud you for that. It's really, really interesting. I'm excited for you to open up to international markets. I'd be very interested to try.
Me too. I think the US is a great market for Fansha for so many reasons. I mean, what we've seen so far in the US is that people are really embracing non-alc as a category. It's, for me, and I think for a lot of people, one of the most exciting categories within the drinks industry. It's one that is outpacing spirits growth in general. And so, that's super exciting for us to see. And what I love seeing is, and that goes for Fansha as well, that it's not just people that are abstaining that are drinking Fansha. It's actually people that do normally drink alcohol, but they're looking to either substitute or reduce in their moderation kind of journey. They're reaching out for Fansha, and they're also open to sort of the newer experiences. You see a lot of products that have adaptogens, have that functionality aspect, or CBD is coming in. So it's quite interesting. I think it's a super exciting time to be here and to be part of it. So yeah.
So I'm also curious, kind of younger company, spent a long time developing this particular spirit. So do you have any plans, as you continue to grow and maybe enter into international markets, do you have any plans to do? Are you going to continue the spirit line to open it into other things? Do you have any interest in getting into maybe like canned, like already made drinks, like non-alc drinks that way? Or do you think it definitely just sticking with the spirit side?
So currently we have one expression, that's this one, Fansha, that you've probably seen. We are working on our second expression to kind of offer something next to Fun Sha as a different choice, but all in the same occasion, all in the post 5:30 p.m. occasion. So that is something that we are working on. Another thing is that, yes, we've seen sort of RTDs explode, and it's a really good way to push trial with new customers because it's just, it's one serve, price point is low. It's the ease, people typically don't have to do much, just pour it over ice.
Right.
The cocktail is, ready to drink, just so to say. So that is something that we've definitely are looking into and have looked into. And so it kind of also depends on the market. RTDs are huge in the US and Northern America for that matter. But for instance, like seltzers have never really made it big in Europe. So it's also, per market.
Really? That's really interesting. I did not know that. I'd assumed that it was as huge everywhere as it was here, but that's really interesting.
RTDs definitely are, but traditional seltzers or sodas that typically did not really make it big in mainland Europe. I don't really know why, but yeah, for the Northern American market, we're definitely looking into seeing, okay, if the idea is to, in the beginning, drive trial and showcase how versatile this product is and what they can do with it, and why not do that in an RTD for definitely that we would be crazy not to look into that.
Right, yeah. So I'm curious, like, I know you said you're doing about 80% retail circumstantially. I mean, that makes sense. It's something I've been hearing a lot, on the podcast and, this kind of this other interview series that I'm doing too in this space. And
the reason for that being, Matt, sorry to interrupt you, is we've seen a shift, and that was going on pre-COVID as well. We've seen a shift from people being out and about quite a lot to entertaining at home and socializing at home and drinking at home, therefore. And we're also seeing that people have become a lot more savvy in making cocktails at home, and therefore they're willing to try new things and sort of, if you look at the search for non-alc cocktails that people can make at home, the increase is huge. That number has grown online. So people are really trying to make the best drinks at home, becoming a little bit of a home bartender. And next to that, the Gen Zs are also a little bit more conscious. And so therefore, that's also driving non-alc quite a bit, but also the at-home consumption, again, quite a bit as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people, thinking about entertaining at home and, like having something sufficient to be able to, offer different tastes, different drinks, different cocktails to people who might be, coming over that you're entertaining in the home. It's very common in the US. I don't know if it's maybe caught on as much in the Netherlands or in Europe, but you can go to literally any restaurant in New York City right now, and there's as many mocktails as there is cocktails with like different types of non-alcoholic spirits. Sometimes there isn't a non-alcoholic spirit. Sometimes it's just like juices and sodas and things kind of mixed together. But I've seen menus where there's more mocktails on the menu than cocktails. Like they just don't advertise the cocktails as much, but they advertise the mocktails because they're just so popular. So I think and the thing about it's a really interesting thought is like, entertaining more in the home, which is definitely true. Wanting to have those things kind of like in your home bar, like you would want to have like, maybe like at least one of each kind of spirit, whiskey, tequila, rum, whatever, just in case somebody wants, something specific. They ask, can you make this? Yeah, of course you want to say, yeah, I'd love to make that for you. Somebody comes that, is typically maybe a mocktail person, or more recently is just, like you say, just like trying to take a little, step back from drinking at every social event they go to like 3 days a week, right? They'll say, oh yeah, I don't know this great mocktail. I bought from this company. They have these great recipes listed on their website. Like I've tried it. It's great. Like let me make it for you. So that's a really interesting perspective. I didn't think about it first. Like that's something I could definitely see, people wanting to have in their repertoire as like, having a home bar and entertaining people at the home. It's really interesting.
And it's also, you kind of want to be that host that is inclusive. So right. I've been to many parties in my life, and you come into someone's house and they're like, oh, what can I make you? And it's like something non-alcoholic. And then they're like, oh, and they come up with a juice,
a glass of water.
Yeah, and you're like, really? That's all I'm going to get? Or, you get, thousands of questions as to why you're not drinking, which
right.
Honestly, being a founder now, I just think, why did I spend so much time answering those questions?
Yeah.
Because it's really none of anyone's business why I don't drink. I've been sort of asked if I'm pregnant or why I'm being so boring and like those kind of questions. And you're like, oh my God. But, and another thing is that a lot of people in the industry, a lot of non-alcoholic founders are really trying to say, we're actually not mocktails, like I heard you say that word a few times, and it's because it's the term, the definition of when there's no alcohol in the cocktail. For years, that's been it. But actually, what I feel, and a lot of people with me feel, there was actually a whole poll on LinkedIn that we should retire that word, because that word for years and years has been a little bit of a mocking word for people like me that don't drink alcohol. And it's one of the reasons why I started Sha, because it's just full of fruit juices, sugars, and sodas. And there's nothing cocktaily about it other than they've put some stuff together, but it's actually more of a smoothie rather than being a cocktail, really coined the term either zero proof cocktails or non-alcoholic cocktails. And that's something that we've been focusing on here in the Netherlands, where also we've seen a great explosion in, people consuming cocktails. We're saying, actually, why don't you call them non-alcoholic cocktails? Because that means there's a non-alcoholic spirit in there. And, mocktails are typically made with fruit juices and sodas and sugars and syrup. So you can really position it as a serious, sophisticated, non-alcoholic cocktail, and also show people that you care and you respect people that don't drink and embrace it a little more. It is embraced a lot more now. Friends are a lot more understanding. Online. There's a lot of debate about why it's okay to not drink. It's become the sort of new cool almost in some sense.
Yeah, that's kind of like in my thinking. I mean, this could just be like a regional, like New York City experience, maybe. I mean, so often. I mean, it's like I think people will show up and like if there weren't mocktails on the menu, they wouldn't even think about it. But they see them and it's almost like it's trendy. You know what I mean? Like it's cooler to order a mocktail almost than it is to order like a really like cool, groovy, like, some kind of like classy cocktail many times. So I was surprised to hear you say that in your experience that it had been calling it a mocktail was kind of like mocking people that like that drink those things. Of course, I also don't know because I was never really into like, the alternative non-alc space. I do drink. I still do. I enjoy cocktail.
What's your poison? What do you typically drink?
I go whiskey, tequila, and I'm really big into wheat beers. So that's kind of that's my big three. But I have tried when my aunt is pregnant currently, and she has been drinking non-alcoholic IPAs, and I gotta say they're just awful. They're really not good. I mean, most of the alternatives I've tried, the only one I actually do like is the Heineken zero alcohol is like I can't believe I'm drinking this thing with like no alcohol. But I know that this is not your space. That's not what you're trying to do, and I quite prefer what you're trying to do better. If I knew of something like this that was out there, I would be very intrigued to try it. But as far as like the real like true like mocking something that's supposed to have alcohol, I think Heineken Zero might be the best fake no alcohol product I've ever tried.
And they've done so well. Beer has been kind of on the forefront. We all know when I think it was Bavaria came out, there's 0% ABV. And yes, in that first generation of non-alc beers, they weren't that good. And so, still some brands are, maybe not cutting it, but the quality is getting so much better because, they're using better technology, better ingredients. They're really thinking about that experience. So I'm actually glad that there's a lot more, brands now jumping into this. You see the bigger brands are also jumping on the bandwagon. It means that this is a serious space for innovation and, growth as well. So that's great.
Yeah. And I'm curious, just want to ask you one more thing kind of about, your future plans for growth, like as you enter these international markets. Are you kind of looking to stick more with, getting into like retail spaces in other markets, or are you looking to more expand internationally with like direct to consumer sales?
Yeah. So again, it kind of depends per market. We were kind of forced to go to retail first because that just was the timing and what was going on in the world. What we would love to do is when we go international to really drive that trial and brand awareness in the hospitality, so bars, restaurants, and etc., to really get people acquainted, familiar with the flavors and the brand, and to really see it in a setting where they're, being social and having that drink and recognizing it on the menu, hopefully. So that's something that we are looking at, that yes, we were forced to do it in a certain way here, but that doesn't mean in all the markets we do that. Now, we know that for non-alc, D2C is very, very interesting. And so that is something definitely that we want to do right from the get-go when we enter a new market so that we are available online for people to order. And really, because there's a lot of investment these days in online social media channels to create brand awareness and engagement. And it would really help if you can commercialize on that and people can buy it right away. Because, let's be honest, if I speak for myself alone, I buy a lot of the products that I see on social media right away there and then. And so it would be a missed opportunity to be in a market where we're, pushing digital and social media activation and you won't be able to buy us. So it's definitely something that we have in our toolbox for our international launch. It's just the way it went here just was a very different way to launch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, speaking of social media, it's really interesting. Like, you don't have to be a impulse buy centered product to embrace that people love to impulse buy things on social media. You know what I mean? Like I do that all the time too. I mean, there's some people I follow. It's like, and you can tell it's like even sometimes like the most obvious plug. It's like they make this regular content and then it's just like, oh, sponsored with whatever. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, this is a really corny like video you just posted, but like the product actually sounds pretty cool. So, yeah, social media is big. What does your kind of social media prowess look like now? Do you do regular posting with the brand now, or is that something you're kind of looking to expand on as you look internationally?
Honestly, we've just started community building. Like I said, we're quite a young brand, but we are definitely active on Instagram.
Nice.
It's actually been our main focus since we launched. And we have a combination of sort of your educational posts telling people or informing people what Fan Sha is and how you can drink it, recipes, etc. But also engaging content where we show Fan Sha in a setting and we don't necessarily talking about being sober, or we're not the preachy type of brand. It's not in our name. We're called Fan Sha. Our sort of like slogan is zero alcohol, plenty of spirit. So we believe that whenever you decide that you want to have a delicious drink without the alcohol or without the effects of alcohol, we're here as a really good choice and you can enjoy it. And so that's kind of what we want to also communicate on our social media channels and do that in a way that is engaging, informative, and at the same time a little bit inspirational, so they see it in a setting where they're like, oh, I can do that at home and or I can go out and have a drink like that. And we do collaborations with our retailers to show, where it's sold, or we communicate that we're doing activations and or sampling. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And so I'm curious, thinking about getting into new markets, or even when you started in the Netherlands market, with food service kind of first and then retail. I'm looking at like the bottle and, I'm trying to imagine like how it would look like in a huge rack full of a bunch of different spirits that are alcoholic. How do you kind of work with the food service brands and in retail to, make sure that your product is, I guess retail would be probably a little more direct, because I'm sure they probably have like a section of non-alc, because I think it's getting that big where there's probably enough where it could have like a section. But I'm curious, like in bars and stuff, like where would you typically find something like this, like in the bar rack to give it notice?
So just to start off with the retail, and this is something that I think retailers have really just recently started to think about, how and where do you place non-alc. And in the beginning, I'm going back 2 years ago, retailers were just placing it next to its alcoholic counterpart. So non-alcoholic gin would be placed next to it. Alcoholic gin. And then obviously, the category grew and there were a lot of more offerings. And then I still remember that I went into a retailer and they had the beers on eye level. And I thought, oh my God, and they had the more, a little bit more expensive kind of non-alcoholic spirits very below on the lower shelf. And it didn't make any sense. And we actually had that discussions with retailers and said, we really need to take this category seriously. And we need to make sure that the consumer that walks in, or the customer that walks in, isn't confused or overwhelmed and needs to look too hard, because then they give up. Right. So we really worked with our retailer Khalal to say, we believe that it should have its own space, and the spirits should be on eye level because they are the most expensive one there. And then you have your wine, and then you have your beer. And so what we're seeing typically now with the retailers that are liquor stores, they have a separate kind of like outline shelf, which is completely dedicated to non-alc. And I know in the UK, that's the case as well. That's and correct, so, they place everything there. And in the Netherlands, we have your mixers, your wine, and we have your beer, and then you have your sort of kombucha, like unique kind of stuff, and then you have your mimic products, and then you have your sort of unique products, and that's where
Gotcha.
where we come in. In the hospitality, it's been interesting. I go out to a lot of bars and restaurants myself. I recently did a masterclass at the Marriott Hotel where we actually kind of worked with them and explained that they need to have a sort of either a dedicated non-alcoholic section on the menu so people find it easy to find and not under soft drinks,
Right.
because then also the pricing doesn't make sense. Or they need to put on their menu under cocktails that they are offering non-alcoholic cocktails of whatever they're offering in terms of alcoholic cocktails. So I think for consumers, it needs to be made easy to find. So they have a bit of the confidence that they can order easily that, non-alcoholic cocktails. Because I remember, and that was actually in New York, going out to a bar and feeling a bit with my colleagues that all drink alcohol and feeling a bit out of place asking for a non-alcoholic cocktail. Because typically, I'm talking about a good 5 years from now, bartenders didn't really like creating non-alcoholic cocktails because they would have to create, like you said, a mocktail, and that's not really, what their craft is about. And so I think they're more than happy now to take on non-alcoholic cocktails and also non-alcoholic spirits and put non-alcoholic cocktails on their menu. On the back bar, places anywhere. I mean, with Fansha, we worked on our branding and on our bottle for it to stand out. When I was launching and when I was actually developing, there weren't a lot of brands that had a colored bottle. A lot of them were transparent bottle. Typically back then, it was a lot of non-alcoholic gin brands.
Right. Yeah.
So I really went on the other way. I said, I don't want my name to have a link with not drinking. I want the name to be, on its own. I don't want to talk about how bad it is for you to drink or that you shouldn't drink. I don't want to be that preachy type of brand. I want to stand out. I want to be loud and proud of the fact that we are bringing choice and not really an alternative, but really a choice.
That's amazing. I love that. So before we go, I just want to give you an opportunity to be able to, plug the brand, let people know if they might be listening. I think this is very intriguing for a lot of people, especially I think most of our bases are probably more U.S. listeners than anything else. And this is a massively growing space in the U.S. So if people want to, keep tabs with the company, stay in touch with you, wait for you to ship internationally so they can order 100 bottles, at the first day you ship internationally. Let them know about the website, any of your social media handles. Yeah, let everybody know.
Yes, follow us on Sha Spirits for the latest update. And if you have any questions, you can email us from our website, www.fanshaspirits.com. But look out for us. We are hopefully going to be in the US soon, really elevating your drink experiences for when you don't want to drink alcohol and you want something that is sophisticated, complex, and has that long finish with some very interesting spices that give you that uplift during your social drinking. So thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and hopefully speak soon.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll definitely be in touch, and I can't wait to try it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharan. Thanks, everybody.